So now let's turn to our next guest, and that is Tom Farrell. Tom is going to show us how he built one of his dioramas. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Well, I'm not in Bloomington, Indiana at the moment. I'm in Sacramento, California. So I couldn't prepare anything on my layout, but I had these photos from a distillery that I made a couple years ago, and I thought I'd share it with you. But first, I always like to show a picture of my old layout. This is the corner of the town of Old Gothic on the original Rustic Buff and Old Gothic Railroad. As everybody knows, it was, or may know, 15 years in the making and 1 year to take down. And I'm building the new version as we speak. This next building, this is going to be this is Baran's White Lightning whiskey. It's a scratch build that I did. I'm going to show you how I did it. People should not get intimidated by scratch building. It's just really a series of simple steps that create, models for a fraction of the cost of laser cut kits. I don't do it from a cost realization. I just prefer to scratch build and have original structures. Nothing wrong with laser cut kits. I just think it's kind of neat to do your own thing. And I'll show you how I did this. I always start with a piece of model aircraft grade plywood. And I start with no plans whatsoever. This is the planning stage right here, where I conceptualize, in this case, 3 general areas. I always paint the perimeter black and the rest of it gray. It's just a habit. And I start with the foundation. And on the left is simply a 1/4 inch basswood. And on the right there, top, that looks like balsa wood. I have a sheet of that I'm trying to use up. So areas that don't require a lot of strength, I try to use up that balsa sheet. What I've done here is that area that was balsa wood is now, quote, concrete. I took some plastic sheet, I think 040 thickness, and I cut it and veneered that box that I just showed you, and then I scribed into the plastic to make it look like there were casting lines there. It's just a nice little detail. And the bottom right is monster board rock, random cut stone. So that's just wood. And I put it on a 45-degree angle. Usually I sand the corners and I match the stone so doesn't end abruptly. It looks like it's part of the each wall is part of the other wall. And then the other structure I just took, it looks like some more Monster Laser Company's brick, and I laminated that over my 1/4 inch basswood. So the foundations of the 3 structures are now in. One's brick, one's concrete, and one's stone. Oop. And we're jumping around a lot here. So, sorry to jump right into pre-made walls there, but basically I'm taking a siding of some kind from one of the manufacturers. I don't remember which one this is, but that's just a siding. And as we saw in the last demonstration, you can see the lines that I've put in there to cut out the cutouts. Those are scaled to Grant line windows. And I heavily brace my models with that 1/4 inch basswood. I don't want any warpage, and it's really inexpensive to do it. Makes for a very strong model. I think one of the most important things you can do when you scratch build or build a laser kit is to keep everything square. if you keep everything parallel, perpendicular, and square, it simply fits better. There's less fudging. So I make it a point to make sure everything's squared up. Here I've put on a base coat of paint. If you see here to the right wall, there is just the base green. And then the highlighted wall is basically scratched with a wire brush. And then I've put a black India ink on there. And then I've dry brushed some white on there. It's a very simple process. So there's a base coat. These are all, I don't use the Floqual paints anymore, any of the hazardous paints. I just use the ceramic or the acrylic paints from a craft store. Infinite number of colors, and they're not typically hazardous to your health. And they're very inexpensive. You know, they're less than $1, typically a bottle. So I like to add a little dimension to my buildings instead of having just flat walls. So I have a bump out there. Just adds a lot of visual interest to the model, as you'll see going forward here. See the dormers, how simple it is to put on dormers. The roof is nothing more than, I think, 1/8" aircraft grade plywood. And then the dormers are just another scale wood, in this case, just little triangles that I've cut out. And I don't use super glue anymore, but that's what these were put on with, was super glue. And there's another detail of the other side. What I'm trying to demonstrate here is just how simple a process of scratch building is. It's just a series of simple cut parts that, when added, when you continuously add these simple cut parts to a structure, you're going to see a world-class model at the end. You can see it's just slow build. Now I've put the deck on and the porch, if you will. And I've test fit some of the Grant Line windows here. See the colors again. I started with like just a gray on that bump out, and on the dormers just a base color gray. I've scratched it with a wire brush, and then I've washed it with an alcohol wash. Same is true with the porch there. There's a detail shot here. I just paint that green on there. It's just an acrylic craft paint. Scratch the bejesus out of it, and you get that. I mean, there's really nothing to this. You just scratch it. It looks like it's 100 years old. It's nothing to it, really. It's just patience, And that's just strip wood. That's scale strip wood. It looks like I've used 1x8s in that case, and those are 4x4 vertical pieces and a 2x6 up top, or 2x8 up top there, the unpainted one. And again, you just layer these. I put these, I think those are 2x8s there. I just measured across some 16-inch centers and in scale, and super glued them to the roof, just like you're building a house, really. It's just simple pieces that you just keep building and building and building, and it just looks super detailed at the end. And there is the, I did put a sheet of sheathing on there, which is basically pieces of very thin plywood. And then I put these shingles on there row by row. These are commercial shingles, stripped layer by layer. You can see here, I've put some of the perimeter trim on the building. If you look at the corners and across the top, again, it's just strip wood, pre-painted. Pre-paint the strip wood, glue it on. Now you can see the model's really taking shape. I mean, to me, that looks pretty spectacular. It's just so simple. You see the weathering underneath the windows. It's like a little dry brush. And See how the roof has some detail. It's not just, there's where the bump out is, has a little shelf there that's different. The smokestack is a precast, I purchased that from somebody and just painted it up. Everything gets trimmed out. If you see the trim along the bottom of the model and along the sides, it covers up your corners if there's any misfits. This is looking underneath the front roof. There's that sheathing I was bragging about. And if you look at the support under there, there's 4x4. Well, it looks like 4x4s underneath there supporting those beams running perpendicular to the front of the house, the front of the structure. Again, there's nothing complicated about this. It just requires patience, Here's the actual still for the distillery. The actual still on the right there, that was a grain structure from some Rick's products, I believe. I just used 2 layers of it and put in expensive plastic that I had around to make the pipe come out of it. And I painted it, made it look rusty. The barrel that it goes into, I think I started with the shaving can lid, and then I just super glued wood around the perimeter of the cap of a shaving can and put a front on it. And then the decking to the left is, again, they're just simple pieces of wood. It may look complicated, but it's really just a question of patience. For a visual interest, I usually leave some of the windows open, those Grant Line windows open. There's a side. See my water tower, that's all scratch built. I have to put the wires around that water tower. So in other words, those we have a close-up coming up of that. Yeah, right there. It's not quite finished. You have to put bands of like a steel rod around there. That's a simple thing. I've got to finish that up. But it's sitting on a just a little simple structure I made out of scale wood. Whole trick here is to just continuously add details and visual interest to the model. I thought a water tower up there would look pretty neat. And if you see my ladder there, just a commercial ladder from Plastruct, but then I put these wooden steps up the roof, if you will. That's nothing more than scale 2x4s, I think. I just pre-stained them and then I super glued them onto the roof. So the theory is you can walk up the steps, go up the ladder, go up the roof, and you have access to the water tower, was the theory. There's looking down at the roof, all the roof lines. See, there's 4 or 3 dormers and then the water tower, and then metal roof on the basically the boiler room. So close up of some of the details. Just add some ready-made barrels and garbage cans and a couple pallets, and I do a lot of the pre-detailing on the bench here, and then I drop this whole thing into the layout. You can't tell that it was built on a piece of plywood when I'm all done. I had these figures are from Artista. They do a great job. They're pewter metal. They're pre-painted. I don't paint them normally. That's the overall model, basically. All scratch built. The fences are easy. I talked about them in the past. They just make a model jump, So there we are. Any
Tom, on your models that you build, how important do you think roof detail is?
Well, that's an interesting question. when you're visiting a layout, I mean, typically the first thing you see is you're looking down, because you're typically, even like my layout is between 48 and 52 inches high, let's say. And your eyesight, you're looking, the first thing you see typically is the roofs. So I think it's important to break up the roofs, weather the roofs, put details on the roof. It's all about visual interest and training the eye to, you know, if you see the roof and you see, you know, like for example, on my the water tower, for example, or those unusual 2x4s that run up the shingles, you know, that's an unusual detail that catches somebody's eye. So it adds visual interest to the whole view. Yeah.
I've had people tell me in the past that the impression that you get when you look at a roof, your mind will carry that through the model.
Yeah, I tend to agree, because if you just use a flat shingled roof, yeah, it's somewhat uninspiring and relatively repetitive, so it's not so interesting. But if you throw things on, like, you know, maybe you show a weathered roof and you show some of the sheathing or tar paper going through it, or you put on 2x4s, like, then now your mind says, oh, somebody could walk up that roof. So now you're getting somebody interested in what you're doing here. You know, it's not just a flat plane. And that's why I don't do buildings that are typically flat walls. I call them bump outs. You know, I put visual interest, some dormers or something. So I'm not just flat square buildings, you know.
Yeah. Beautiful structure. Thank you so very much.
All right. Thank you.